All right, welcome everyone. We have a very special This Week in Crypto. I believe our only one here in July that both Maxim and I have been present.
True.
Welcome, Max. It's good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Brian, too. Yeah. Last time I covered the stage. I think 2 times before. You had to do it as I was on travel. Now, is it the final? Yes, I think next Friday, so the 1st of August. Yeah.
August 1st is our next one. So we're capping off July here with
Yeah.
6 days to go still. But obviously, it's been an up and down roller coaster. Bitcoin has managed to retrace a little bit and take down many of the altcoins with it. But a lot of focus has kind of shifted to Ethereum from what you
Yeah.
and myself and many other sentiment members have noticed. And the data has kind of backed that up, hasn't it?
Yes, it does. As we shortly discussed before the stream, that might be offering some hints what could happen next if we would base our analysis on sentiment data alone. By the way, I don't know if you listened last week when I was here holding the stage. At that time, I think I came into the call without specific opinion on the market. And recommended also everyone on the stream do it regularly, at least few times a week. You just forget what you try to forget. What you hold about market, and you just go through your major setups. In our case, it's mostly we have me and Brian some chart layouts. So it's good to you look into it, and then you. Well, it's an advantage when I'm in the stream, so I talk, and it's a kind of self-reflection, and then say, okay, well, it looks like we might get a small retracement here and there, but we are poised to make a kind of push higher. Partially fulfilled. Indeed, we had, I think Ethereum came a bit higher, then start retracing, but no big breakthrough in none of them, neither Bitcoin nor Ethereum. We'll see where we come up today.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, so much of the focus has kind of shifted away from Bitcoin. Last week was kind of celebrating its all-time high, and now it's kind of about where those profit redistributions are going. And, you know, we were looking a little bit at the sentiment right before this call started. Bitcoin's sitting here kind of in the middle, not overly euphoric, not overly bearish. Obviously, you do want to see these euphoric spots as good take profit opportunities, and these spots as good buy opportunities, like this when we saw the US and Iran exchanging airstrikes and things were very worrisome, and obviously that was the perfect buy spot. But if we go to Ethereum, we will see a similar dip around that mid-June area where the airstrikes were happening, but you can see how quickly things changed. We actually saw, interestingly, a lot of doubt about a week ago as people were trying to take profit too early, and this allowed the price to continue moving up. And eventually it did finally top. And now we're seeing kind of this interesting optimism from the crowd where they believe there's a second wave coming up and an inevitable jump to 4K and beyond. But obviously we know, Maxim, that isn't typically going to happen unless Bitcoin can start getting some momentum itself. So we're in this weird little predicament.
So that's a very good point. Yeah, I think we will come to it even more when we talk today. Yeah?
Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit on sentiment, but we've got a lot we can look at. Maybe before we go into some of the on-chain stuff, I want to look at, you know, trending words, trending coins, stuff like that, because there's been all sorts of different discussions that have been ranging from political to celebrity deaths. Rest in peace, Hulk Hogan, if you were a fan. A lot of celebrity deaths in the US, actually. So they've been kind of creating a lot of noise in the crypto context, taking away from the crypto conversations. But you do see Powell here. There was a big discussion where both Jerome Powell and Donald Trump were on camera talking about the budget and the debts. Yeah. So that went viral. I know that was a situation, but we also are watching to see what the next rate cut decision will be, and that's going to be an important uh, topic that the crowd will be focused on. I personally don't see anything changing. It seems as though Powell and Trump are still at odds. Um, Trump wants interest rates to be cut tremendously, of course, but Powell has stayed strong up until this point. So
Yeah.
I believe the probabilities are still going to be very high that no rate changes are made, especially with stock markets continuing to look really good. And let's look at that really quick. We have Bitcoin, the S&P 500, and gold here. And you can see, yes, it's the S&P 500 that just continues to make all-time highs here. I believe they were above 6,400 briefly yesterday. And Bitcoin has actually diverged a little bit, coming back down to about 115K at the time of this recording. Gold is also moving down a bit. All three of them have been up tremendously since the big dip in April. But usually when you see the S&P 500 continuing to do this, it's pretty hard to make the argument that interest rate cuts are necessary, right? Because usually that's something you would do if the S&P 500 is struggling due to economic conditions, unemployment, GDP, things like that.
And even more important, okay, not more important. Another important point is that historically, I'm not sure how many people realize, but Fed decisions are based on market dictating conditions. I don't know which one you take now, 3 years or 5 years or 10 years yield. It is leading indicator. They usually act 3 or 6 months after something happening there. And if the market dictates, it's what market is ready to pay for mid-term to long-term US debt. And Fed is just adopting to it. They're not actually, I don't know if Trump knows or doesn't know, or just ignores what he knows, stating you drop the yield, we start saving money. It doesn't work like this. Market decides the yield, not Fed. So, and so far, nothing changed much. I think it's still 4.5 around it. Depends on durations, 4.2 to even a bit longer. So there is zero chance Powell would change now anything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what the retail consensus is at this time. There really has not been any changes. We see this news story pop up about once a month where Trump is ready to oust Powell or Powell is ready to resign.
Yeah.
I kind of roll my eyes every time I see that headline because it just doesn't quite make sense to me that that would happen. I believe Powell's tenure comes up at the end of next year or mid part of next year.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And yeah.
So shortly before midterm.
Let me fact check that. I want to make sure to get it correct. But yeah, I believe Powell's tenure end is May 2026. So just about a year from now.
Okay.
And until then, I don't expect that there's going to be any changes. Of course, if Powell does resign for some reason, as the occasional rumors pop up saying, that would change a lot, and Trump would appoint someone who would essentially do whatever he wants. But I don't see that happening. For those wondering why we focus so much on the Fed rates in general, it's because they have a tremendous impact on where crypto goes next. And we've really seen that going back to early 2022 when they started to raise interest rates to make up for the COVID cuts. So we're going way back 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. Big interest rate cuts happened. We finally saw markets stop bleeding. And of course, they had a huge run all the way up until the middle of 2021. And then in early 2022, they started to make up for it. And we saw that huge crash that you can see illustrated right here. And then they finally, if I remember correctly, they started to cut those rates again in mid to late 2023. And we saw this huge bull cycle as a result. not only for crypto, but for the S&P 500. So many people just assume as soon as we get those interest rate cuts again, we'll see another huge bull run. So of course, Trump wants this. He's very vocally connected to the stock market and how companies are looking. He takes a lot of pride in the U.S. economy and the stock markets moving up when he is the reigning U.S. president. So this is one of his big focuses. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we're not a political channel, but in terms of what crypto's fate is, it's going to have a lot riding on how the decisions are made from the Fed's perspective. I also wanted to mention, Maxim, looking at the inflows and outflows for ETFs right now, we did see 3 straight days of outflows here before we finally had an inflow yesterday. These dates, I talked with Ante, and they're actually one day ahead. So this was July 24th. This was the 23rd, 22nd, 21st. So we had 3 minor outflow days that did look a little worrisome and then had kind of a rebound yesterday. And prices have actually dropped a little bit since this. We'll see this at the end of today. But I still think these inflows that happened from early June all the way until mid-July are overwhelmingly a good sign for the long term of crypto, because you just see all these institutionals continuing to flow in, not millions, but billions of dollars net-wise of money. And this is kind of a familiar scene to what we're seeing on the on-chain whale end, which we can look into in a moment. But what do you think about the overall inflow and outflow picture as we see it here in front of us?
It's like an indicator, I think, always been.
Yeah.
Especially once people start talking about, and there is some manche for it, or dominance of conversation. Look, there've been inflows or outflows, then it's revealing underlying sentiment. By itself, it's just pretty noisy data. No pure signal, but being used by media or picked up by media to confirm or project in the future movement which happened so far, it's a good indicator.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's a lagging indicator, but kind of like some of our other lagging indicators, like mean dollar invested age, it tends to go down as prices go up. I do think they're still a good validator, because one of the best.
In this sense, yes.
Yeah.
It should be if the price increasing. You can see it even on this chart, starting from I think like August last year. Whenever there is a big spike in inflows, we need to see it as a confirmation of underlying trend here.
Exactly.
If we don't get it, was it any point of time that we didn't get? No, so far we always get it, so it's good. And but these big spikes, which on this chart, again back from August last year, they seem to be also on a similar level. They kind of warning cooling down. Looks like we can use it in this way.
Yeah, and what Maxim means by confirmation, by the way, is...
sorry, it's not August, it's April. I just misunderstood the chart, yes, exactly.
Right here, yeah.
Yes. So since April, when there is a growth, when we see sizable spikes, they on the chart, exactly like you just posted here, these big ones.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always pinpointing either to immediate top or very shortly thereafter, like 3 days up.
Right. And what Maxim means by confirmation is when we do see a big rise like this, where we go from 84K all the way up to 93, we see these big inflows as confirmation that this rise was legitimate, that it came from institutional inflows coming into ETFs. And of course, there was a lot of on-chain buying at this time too. So if you saw this kind of rise without these big inflows, that would actually be more of a concern that the rally may have been artificial or temporary or some sort of bull trap. So because of this confirmation that we saw, it gave an increased probability signal that the rally was not over. And sure enough, it continued on until we eventually made that all-time high of 112K.
I think, Brian, I need to correct myself when I was now
Sure.
a bit reflecting. When we get, so probably the way it works, because the data is relatively transparent as also in the business, once there is big orders, they're front running. The Bitcoin price, let's say, front running ETF buys. So the moment it does realize itself, we get big ETF buys, market cools down for some time. Yeah, depends how time in May 25 you see this big spike, the final one.
This one, yep.
Yeah, that led to quite longer corrections. The one before was also quite big. Yeah, like 3 days before, 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah. These three here.
3 days before. 3 days before.
Oh, before that, yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's also quite big. At the time when you see it, it's quite big. Still, it pushed higher. So I would say any big sizable ETF inflow give us 2 to 3 days to, if we're into Bitcoin, to reposition ourselves and either to take profits or to hedge or whatever you're doing. So it's there are enough somehow dynamics market, which you can say it's price of Bitcoin front running big inflows into ETFs. The latecomers.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I continue to monitor this chart, and we'll give you more updates throughout the week. Going into next week, I think it'll be interesting to see if these institutionals keep up their inflows going into August. And of course, as a reminder to everyone, this dashboard is completely free. Many of the tools are for Sandbase Pro members only. Otherwise, you get a 30-day lag. But on this one, feel free to check it out. It's a free benefit of being part of the Santiment community, no matter what kind of member you are. So I highly recommend keeping tabs on this one. If we move over to on-chain for a moment, I also want to load the activity matrix here in the background so we can look at it at the end. We'll just let that load. So looking at on-chain metrics for Bitcoin, we do see the transaction volume has come down pretty significantly as prices have kind of lost some of their steam, even though we did get that all-time high here on July 21st. Notice how, we've got the on-chain transaction volume moving down and prices moving slightly up here, right? So that's a bit of a bearish divergence. You want to see transaction volume moving up and up over time. And it kind of looks the same for network growth here. I'll just use I'll get rid of the trend lines to make it a little easier to see. So you can see daily active addresses have been moving down since July 9th or so. We had a huge spike in circulation on the 15th, but it's been moving down ever since. And then network growth also had its peak around July 9th, July 10th, and it's been moving down. So not quite ideal to indicate that Bitcoin will continue moving up and up in the mid and long term until we start to see the network getting active again and not moving in the wrong direction like we've kind of seen going all the way back to late May. MVRV is also an important thing to keep track of. Note that the 30-day MVRV has come back to about dead even at plus 0.2%. This means that on average, all wallets that have been active in the past 30 days, their average profit when you blend it all together is just about break even. However, the long term for the 365-day active wallets is still up at about plus 20%. So we're, in an ideal world, we're trying to buy or add on to our positions when both of these lines are in negative territory. And we saw that last, I believe, during the tariff times right here, April 7th to 10th or so. This was the ideal time. Of course, in hindsight, it was a pretty unprecedented time. Trump was threatening tariffs and markets were crashing, especially in the stock markets. They crashed the most they did in the 2-day span in about 5 years, going back to when COVID started. So people were very worried here, but of course, now many are kicking themselves, wishing they bought, knowing that it was kind of this temporary thing that's arguably meant to control markets a little bit, depending on what you believe was the true intention of those tariffs. But they are still a thing. They're not fully resolved yet. So all it takes is for a huge tariff slap to come down on China or the EU from the US, and all of a sudden we see another mini to mid-sized crash coming up. So keep that in mind. But as of right now, the MVRV is still looking a little bit overheated on the long term. So keep that in mind. Funding rates, we've seen a few little mini spikes where people are trying to long, but they tend to get neutralized pretty quickly because Bitcoin just seems to retrace whenever people get too excited as of late.
Yeah.
I do want to show Ethereum as well for funding rates really quick. And they're about as neutral as you get as well. So nothing too exciting here. If you start seeing this kind of euphoria like we saw at the end of 2024, clear sign that we're getting close to a top. But for now, there still could be a little bit of a rally and a push toward 4K as long as the crowd isn't starting to open up all those leveraged longs and margin accounts to try to profit off of Ethereum as much as possible. As far as whales go, notice this. I'm curious what you think about this, Maxim. There was this big spike here on July 14th. So this was about a week and a half ago. And really, that was just about when we saw the all-time high. I know we edged over that, technically, what was the highest day here? Let me see if I can back up a tiny bit. Yeah, so it was right when these whales spiked. To me, this was a clear sign.
The same time when we had a big coin age consumed, the way recent. Actually, it's some time ago, or is it 10 days? Yeah.
So age consumed, the biggest spike we had was way back on July 3rd.
Okay.
So nothing really special in terms of age consumed around that all-time high. But I do think that all of the whales becoming very active here, especially the $1 million plus whales, this was a clear sign that there was some profit taking going on and we were probably about to retrace. And that's exactly what's kind of happened ever since. So whale transactions are often going to be a signal that we are going to get a reversal, especially very big spikes. Watch them as a sign that whales are either accumulating all of a sudden or dumping all of a sudden. And it's going to be dependent on the trend. Right now we're ranging, so if a whale spike happened right now, it could mean anything. Maybe a small sign that they're accumulating because of this latest downturn, but it isn't much of a downturn. But a big spike like this, and then you see whale transactions spiking, that's a pretty clear sign that there's some profit taking going on and we could see a downturn. And if we look at the overall holdings, switching to the key stakeholder chart here for a minute, we see that they have kind of been going up and down ever since the all-time high. So they actually dumped a bit on July 15th. Between the 15th and the 22nd that week, they dropped about 43,000 Bitcoin, which is pretty significant. Since that time, they've added back about 19,000 Bitcoin, and we're still looking to be in the right direction overall here. But I'd be a little bit concerned about the fact that they are still holding less than they were back around the all-time high 9-10 days ago. Do you have any thoughts about the key stakeholders related to Bitcoin right now, Maxim?
Key stakeholders what?
For Bitcoin.
They do not look anything overly dangerous. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
From what I remember, there was more like became from decreasing to not changing small group of small hodlers. Last time when I checked it out here on the stream last week, there was like
Yep.
not change. Is it still the same? Yeah, still the same.
Yeah, it's still the same. This is 0 to 0.1, and they're kind of staying flat, if not moving a bit down. They've kind of, ever since the early June, about 7 weeks ago or so, they've been moving down.
One of those reasons which still keeps believing we might need to make a new high. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'd like to see the top holders moving up a little bit more, but it is a good sign that the retail traders are moving down overall, and they hold about 1.58% of the supply now. If we look at it from a raw coin perspective, we see that since June 8th, they have dropped about 0.2% of their holdings, which is somewhat significant over such a short period of time. But we'll see. I think that ultimately we just need to see a little more coming from this bright green line here. And if they start to make a higher high from where they were from July 15th, that's a clear sign that we're probably headed for a new all-time high once again. Supply and exchanges mostly moving down. Notice how it kind of went up right around the all-time high. You can see the little all-time high here on the 14th, and all of a sudden we get a big jump in supply and exchanges, about 0.3% of all Bitcoin moving back to exchanges between the 14th and 17th. Since that time, they're resuming moving back down. That is a good sign. A few other things on the on-chain end. Mean dollar invested age, Maxim, if we look at the last year, it's still looking pretty good. I mean, this was the last big age consumed spike on the 3rd, and that ended up triggering a big bull run that got us to the new all-time high. But the mean dollar invested age line is still moving down overall. Between July 2nd and now, yeah, it's the average investment is about 10 days younger, just over the past 3 weeks. So as long as this is moving down, as we mentioned, it is a lagging indicator, but it's indicative that dormant tokens are still reacting to these prices and feeling confident that they can move their money out of stagnant wallets. So I like the sign of this. Network realized profit and loss. This is actually, to me, a bit concerning. You can see the rising level of realized profits that Maxim has discussed in previous calls. And then after the all-time high, the realized profits are actually starting to diminish. We'd like to see rising realized profits as a sign that retail is jumping out and allowing institutionals to pump up prices. And we need those realized profits to continue pouring in to justify higher and higher prices like we saw throughout April and May here and throughout the end of November. And eventually you can see, similar to what we saw in mid-December 2024, the realized profits started to dry up here a little bit outside of this spike that happened afterwards. You can see how they dried up, and that indicated we were likely going to hit a top, which we did. We talked about supply and exchanges. Overall social dominance is still quite high for Bitcoin, so there is quite a bit of eyeballs on the number one asset in crypto. If we switch to Ethereum really quick, you'll see what we mean about so much focus. You'll like this one, Maxim. There's still so much focus on Ethereum compared to other assets right now, and obviously it's due to this big price jump. It's still up something like 150% or so, now 147% since that crash in early April. So people are euphoric about it. There's no doubt about it. There's plenty of people that are casually mentioning the flippening again, things like that, hoping to see Ethereum's market cap continue to make a dent into Bitcoin. If we look at it from an actual price perspective and you compare Ethereum versus Bitcoin, Get rid of these trend lines we don't need. Yeah, so since May 7th, Ethereum's ratio versus Bitcoin is up about 70%. That is why we see so much euphoria toward Ethereum now. People are starting to believe that Bitcoin is the boring uncle now, and you need to be with the fresh, exciting, pumping coin that is doing a lot of higher highs on a daily basis. Even though it's been ranging for a few days now, you can see clearly from the social dominance end just how much Ethereum is still being focused on by the crowd right here. RSI is still up a little above 70. That's concerning. You want to see it below 50 ideally from a TA perspective. And then the amount of holders, it's just continuing to grow, largely due to the DeFi and staking options of Ethereum. But you can see it's way up, almost hitting 153 million, which is a new all-time high. It pretty much is making a new all-time high every day in terms of the amount of non-empty wallets sitting on Ethereum. Okay, so a few other topics. I wanted to look at some social trend information here. We will start by looking at the alpha narratives, which has just updated as of today. And a few of the spiking topics that we're looking at include Bitcoin whale moves, big discussions just in the past 24 hours regarding some of the largest whales and what they're doing. If you look at the summary that's being created by our Alpha Narratives AI, we see that there was a withdrawal of 1.7 billion in Ethereum by Aave whales, which triggered a scramble to unwind looping trades. There's also discussion about a 14-year dormant Bitcoin whale, and that created a lot of discussion because, you know, that's going all the way back to 2011. You can see that there's a whale paying 112K for a single transaction just in fees, another moving 40,000 Bitcoin worth $4.83 billion. There's a whale selling 8,000 Ethereum for $30 million. So lots of whale focus at the moment. I think overall, just in the last couple of years, you've seen this increased focus from retail traders on whales, which is a good thing. It means they're getting more educated because whales have such a large impact on markets. So that's been one of the biggest spikes as of today. We also saw Tesla being discussed at an increased rate over the past couple of days. A more minor spike for NFT prices. You've seen them spike a little bit. Meme coins, their biggest spike was back on Monday. And I did want to show you this, Maxim. Looking at meme coin social dominance. There we go. So it's all about Bitcoin. Actually, it's on Ethereum now, but layer ones in general are getting a huge amount of discussion, even layer twos, thanks to Bitcoin and Ethereum here, while meme coins are mostly being ignored now. So for those expecting a quick top because of a lot of euphoria towards speculative assets, that isn't really happening right now. The meme coin euphoria isn't really there the way it was in late 2024 when we saw these huge spikes. Going back to alpha narratives, we also see that GameFi is way up there. They're seeing a spike. Huge spike right here from the Ethereum price. This was right around when it topped. But this is where all the FOMO came in on the 19th and 20th here. Doge had a spike as well on the 19th. And you can see DOG as well. They went kind of hand in hand. Way at the beginning of the week, you had art and NFT being discussed a lot. Russiagate toward the beginning of the week had a big spike. And those are kind of the major ones that I'm seeing. Solana, a mild spike here about 24 hours ago. Ethereum itself having another mild spike here. But I definitely recommend checking out our alpha narratives. This is also free, whether you have a pro membership or not. So just like that ETF inflow and outflow dashboard, feel free to keep tabs on this anytime you want to see where the conversations are veering on a day-to-day basis. Alpha narratives is still loading. Looks like it's getting there. We'll give it a little more time. Now, looking at trending tokens, give it a quick refresh. I think I just refreshed it, but I want to make sure. I did see Solana way up at number 1 right now, which is interesting. Harry Potter Obama Sonic Inu is one of the big meme coins getting a huge gain in social dominance once again. Interesting to see that. It's the Bitcoin ticker, which is super clever of them. They get a lot of people thinking they're investing in BTC, but they're actually investing in Harry Potter Obama Sonic 10 Inu. Classic crypto. Yeah, number 1 is actually Syrup now. I think that just swapped in the last hour. So Syrup is getting a ton of discussion. We've talked about this many times. When a meme coin or a more speculative asset is getting a ton of social volume, while prices are pumping, it's usually a sign that we're going to see a top. So I would be a little bit weary of Syrup right now if you're trying to invest in it or you've already been FOMO'd into it. Be cautious of the fact that the crowd is very euphoric toward it at this time. Solana, seeing a little bit of a bullish narrative, but it has actually been moving in the wrong direction, lagging compared to most of the rest of crypto as of late. But it does look like, yeah, I don't see any huge reasons for it to be trending. It's probably just a natural inflow of social volume at this time. Tether at number 3 is always interesting. Mentioned in context with market stability, liquidity, and regulatory scrutiny. Ton coin, I did see that Ton was having some mild pumps, but that's calmed down a little bit over the last 12 hours. Bitcoin here at number 5. ENA at number 6. Tron at number 7. That's interesting to see. Tron is always one that gets massive swings when it does start to trend. Ethereum at number 8, Algo at number 9, and Soph at number 10. So these are the coins getting the most interest at this time.
Anything? Ton is a little bit. I'm not sure if it's too negative. I think it's still a result of. There was some announcement of. Cannot recall, a few days ago, something generally positive, or can perceive to be positive for Ton. Not sure if it's still results of it. Okay, I'm looking for some negative sentiment. Not much visible. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not really anything too special. We can check on our other chart to see if there might be something directly on the positive versus negative, but I don't think so. Opening up Ton. We'll zoom in just the last 3 months. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty neutral at the moment. Nothing too negative. In fact, this is where we saw them really get a little bit of FUD. Yeah. This was like a 2-month high in FUD, and then all of a sudden we blasted off and saw this huge local top. So it's not really euphoric or fearful at the moment, kind of stuck in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Darn. I don't know why Activity Matrix didn't want to fully load. I'm not going to sweat it right now. We still have a few other things we can show. The historical crypto trends. So
yes, good that you bring it up. I was checking it a few days ago and I realized it's a hidden gem in the universe of sun-based tools.
Yeah.
Just one overview, and I was looking at it and saying, my God, I look for it for 5 minutes and I know what's going on. See the tariffs, Trumps, it's a kind of you think it's still a topic. It's not really, yeah. ETFs, where alt season, meme coins is picking up. Yeah. I mean, you see spikes in tariffs, but compared to what it was before, when we built the last temporary bottom, or before we really pumped,
Yeah.
was highly discussed, and it's tariffs by itself at that time considered to be more like bearish narrative. Because fear and expectation market. And since then, it's not much. No tariffs, no Trump, inflation, but ETFs, alt season, meme coins. Actually, we are getting to the top now. Based on the narratives themselves, you see, it's a topic set of narratives. ETFs, alt season, meme coins. Yeah, I wonder maybe we can bring a few more narratives. What do you think, which ones, or maybe people who on the stream, if you can just drop something into comment section. You see there are two fields not occupied yet. So we could visualize two more narratives, and then we'll have full overview. Maybe like...
Yeah. I mean, I'd always recommend having Bitcoin and Ethereum here, and maybe even XRP, just by default. I really think it would be cool to just have like 100 of these, just as like a dashboard. I don't know about the load time and what that would cause from a technical perspective, but the more the merrier in my perspective. You know, how many people are bullish toward Bitcoin? How many people are bearish toward Ethereum? Stuff like that.
Well, this valuable too. I'm just not sure how we can combine everything at once.
Right.
What comes to my mind now, ETF is a generic topic, but what we have now specifically is Michael Saylor, and its equivalent in Ethereum. This is, I think, a very important topic which we need to track. I don't know what is a set of words to track Saylor equivalent or MicroStrategy equivalent on Ethereum. There must be, I think there are like three major or four companies who are focused on it, starting with Joseph Lubin and another two smaller ones. Yeah, we might be needed to track these ones here.
Yeah, I just put in a little query that I think would show it pretty well. Saylor strategy or MicroStrategy combined with ETH or Ethereum. And we do see that it's a pretty huge social dominance spike right now. So you're right.
Yes. I think we need to add it there. Obviously, that most likely will be together with alt season, maybe meme coins, will be a strong indicator for quite long-term top. I hope we're not there yet, because I have not exited Ethereum holdings yet, taking some risks. But yeah, this seems to be what the market is playing, expecting, and bringing as a rational narrative for why Ethereum has to be 8 or 10,000, whatever they dream about.
Right.
I think it will be there, but I'm pretty sure we'll get 4,050. Depends on the sentiment we might get beyond it, and it will be the narrative that look what happened to Bitcoin and the Saylor and ETFs and how it pushed. The same applies to Ethereum. Simple, logical, rational, which can make you irrationally feeling an expectation of 8,000, and this will make it the top. Yeah? So we need to bring this narrative. Remember it, Brian. We'll talk to Jeff, and we'll little bit shape the query to have that narrative. I think it's very new one, and that's it. Our dashboard will be super good.
Yeah. And those watching, leave in the comments, not just the live chat, but in the comments, because I know most of you are watching this on replay, not live. Tell us which stories, or I'm sorry, crypto trends you'd like for us to include here, because we really are receptive to your ideas, and we want to make this page as useful as possible so the subjects are never stagnant. Sometimes we'll add something and it'll be very relevant for a couple months, and then for a long period of time it won't be relevant, and we don't want to have you using limited charts. We want to have always at least a few of these things be spiking on a daily basis, so you have something on a very convenient dashboard like this to see where the attention is moving. So we're going to continue to work on this. I agree with you, Maxim, though. I think it's underrated, underutilized, and hopefully we can make it the perfect dashboard for our awesome community here. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be relevant. Maybe we can do a quick look at XRP. I know there were a couple people asking for this. So XRP, you can see the massive spike that it had between.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right, Brian, we need to
Yeah.
do one more thing with tokens like Ripple, Tezos,
Yeah.
Cardano. Sorry, Doge, I generally like Doge, but from point of behavior analytics, it belongs there. Normally, I don't mix. This is Doge is cool. Ripple, Cardano, and Tezos is questionable. Have nothing against them, just it's different things. So we need to have. Do you have a chart handy? They're priced against BTC, maybe a few more. Yeah, but this for it's a really indicator. We used to think and actually take into account Doge price pumping against Bitcoin as a final nail into the coffin of bull market. Now it's a more complex. It's not just Doge, unfortunately. Make it more complicated. But this for, I don't know, maybe Polkadot. We can add it too. Who knows? Polkadot, Cosmos, all the things which used to be cool, but somehow, yeah. So we need to add it. And next time, let's hope bull push is not over. We will bring this two things. One is a narrative around MicroStrategy and its equivalent on Ethereum, and then the set of coins which, if they're pumping against Bitcoin, then you know, okay, you have 1 or 2 weeks left, and then you need to run. Yeah. And these two things, guys who are on the stream, you listen to us. I know it's a small community. Hopefully, it will stay small. I like smaller ones because this is where you can appreciate and share intelligence. And on a big level, it's difficult. The more people, the lower go intelligence. And that will be enough. I think it will be enough for the top. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, like a big rise in Doge versus BTC's price ratio is a major top indicator.
Well, it used to be in the past only Doge is enough. Now we need to add more. Tezos, Ripple, Cardano, Doge.
Oh, I see.
Let's also add, I don't know, Nia, Polkadot, Cosmos, the things which, if you know, if they're pumping, we are in troubles. Against Bitcoin, yeah. In troubles in terms of like we are closer to the top.
Yeah, so just a general large cap market cap versus Bitcoin ratio. I think I agree. I think that's something we could add and offer to our community. I'll have something I could create for that maybe in the next couple days.
I mean, simple to understand the rationale behind it. Because it's driven will be by big market makers and greedy hodlers, and generally greed of the market. Yeah, because all these big players, they only do it when they believe there is enough greed demand in the market, they can pump it and serve it to you. Yeah. Some random meme coins can pump at any time, not necessarily on top. They can do in between. We've seen meme coins doing crazy stuff even in the bear market. It's not an indicator. But these bigger ones, it's not easy to move them. And people who are moving them need to have conviction that it's a strong bull market, that the greed is there. So they kind of proxy for us. Someone did the work and say, okay, greed is there. And there's just price and pumping. So yeah, next week, don't miss our streams. There will be a few new things.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm excited to debut those.
Want to see what will happen there. Let's hope it will not crash before next week. Then too late, which is pity, yeah. But
agreed. And I'm just looking at XRP here as well, and you can see just how high their MVRV was. 45% for 30-day, plus 80% for 365.
Yeah.
So these were clear signs that we were getting close to a top, and it's still pretty high, plus
Still pretty high, yeah.
42%, plus 7.
That makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
Nervous.
And we're not disbelievers in XRP. You know, we believe that
No,
XRP has
it
a
nothing to do with a specific currency. Just
right.
we have to be here cold-blooded behavior analysts.
Exactly.
But generally, nothing against, of course. Actually, we are one of the few data providers for Ripple who has a lot of metrics which I don't know who else have it. So we are not.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool XRP dashboard. I didn't preload it, but maybe I'll show that next week.
Yeah.
Especially
Okay,
if XRP is in the news.
Yeah.
They did have some pretty big age consumed spikes here on the 20th to 22nd, and that was a great sign, or not such a great sign if you're an XRP holder, that we were going to go back down.
For time. Actually, this is now when you mention it, I didn't see it. It could be generally an indicator we're not done yet. Of course, short term it does suppress price because it only means that all-time hodlers move it most likely to exchange, and the price will be dumped for some time. But the reason they're holding realizing profits now is they think, okay, I need to take it. God knows it will go higher. More often than not, it will go higher eventually, or at least will try to go higher. So the danger is when there are no age consumes, when there are no network realized profit loss, if even price is high. This is a bad time. Yeah, this is where you really need to run. As long as we see the spikes, it's okay, acceptable. Even though short term, yeah, it's suppressed. Ripple or XRP market is not so big to absorb all of this.
Yeah, gotcha. I think that's some good clarification. This big social dominant spike, also a big sign of a top.
Yep.
But
oh yeah, actually, yeah. We should have come 3 days, or when was it? Yeah, a few days ago when it was pumping. I didn't look into this metrics. Anyway, maybe next time we'll do it.
Well, are there any other takes you want to make before we conclude today's call, Maxim?
No, same. Waiting 4,050 for Ethereum, 125K for Bitcoin. Call me crazy, or not, actually quite rational, not so much, don't ask for much. But then once we're there, yeah, we'll get into danger territory. We're kind of already close to it, based on all these pumps. But from what I've seen, for instance, I didn't see one other piece of data, but just to finish the thought, from what I've seen, more likely will go to make at least an Ethereum 4,050, more likely. Yeah. And one data point which we did not look into is combined deposits for Maker. It's now not so much, but Sky saving dollars. Stable, the stable model, it doesn't decrease. So people do deploy there, and it gives you only 4.5%. It means they don't see necessity to risk or try to earn more. They still think 4.5%. It's a very good deal. It doesn't look to me like it's an ultimate top. Probably will show it this chart next time, so you see what I mean.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I think 4,050 seems like a very good top kind of signal that we can look for as a turnaround. So if you are targeting a profit-taking spot, keep in mind that that makes a lot of sense, as well as the 125K mark for Bitcoin. And thanks for joining, Maxim. I think this was a great talk, and I'm excited to see where things go moving into August 1st.
Thanks for listening. Always pleasure when we're both here.
Absolutely. I'm glad we're getting back into that now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.